My husband slid the adoption documents back across the table and said, "Can you even imagine looking into the eyes of the man you married, the man who promised to love your child, and hearing him call her defective? Because that's exactly what happened to me." And in that single, gut-wrenching moment, my entire world shattered. My daughter, Rosie, was 6 years old when I married Vincent. She was the most joyful person I'd ever known, a little ray of sunshine with Down syndrome. She laughed at everything, hugged strangers, and told everyone they were beautiful. Rosie was not defective. She was perfect. Vincent knew all about Rosie before we even started dating. He met her on our third date. I never hid the most important part of my life. He said she was adorable, that he loved kids, that having a child with special needs didn't scare him. He said all the right things, and he said them so convincingly that I, naive me, actually believed him. 2 years later, we got married in a beautiful little vineyard ceremony. Rosie was our flower girl, tossing petals everywhere, even at the officiant. Everyone laughed, Vincent included. He picked her up, spun her around, calling her his best girl. I remember crying that day, just overflowing with happiness. I thought I'd found someone who would love both of us, unconditionally. 6 months after the wedding, I thought it was time. Rosie's biological father had never been in the picture. He'd signed away his rights before she was even born. Vincent was the only father figure she'd ever known. I thought making it official, making him her legal dad, would be this beautiful, celebratory thing. I brought home the adoption paperwork, spreading it out on the kitchen table after Rosie went to bed. I explained each form, showed him where to sign, even suggested we celebrate with ice cream and tell Rosie the good news. Vincent looked at those papers for a long, quiet time. Then he just pushed them back across the table. "I'm not signing," he said. My heart just dropped. I asked him why. He calmly explained he'd been thinking about it and didn't want the legal responsibility. Legal responsibility? I asked him what he was so worried about. That's when the words started spilling out. Rosie would need care her entire life. People with Down syndrome couldn't live independently. If our marriage failed, he'd be on the hook for supporting her forever. My blood ran cold. I reminded him Rosie was already family. He'd known about her from the start. He'd stood at our wedding and promised to love and cherish both of us, but he just brushed it off. "That's different," he said. "Loving someone and legally binding yourself to them are two separate things. Don't take it personally." Then came the words that twisted my stomach into knots. Words I will never forget. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "I'm not putting my name on something defective." I asked him to repeat himself. I had to have misheard, but he said it again. Rosie was defective, and he wasn't going to legally claim a defective child. He said it so calmly, so matter-of-factly, as if he was explaining why he didn't want an extended warranty on a car. As if my precious daughter was just a product that didn't meet his standards. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just sat there, staring at the man I had married, and a terrible, cold realization washed over me. I had made a catastrophic mistake. Not about Rosie, never about Rosie. About him. I asked if he had ever truly loved my daughter. He said, "Of course I love her. I just love her from a safe distance." He actually said that. He claimed there was nothing wrong with protecting himself financially, that I was being emotional and not thinking clearly. He insisted we could still be a happy family without those papers. The paperwork doesn't change anything, he argued. But I knew the truth. That paperwork changed everything. A father doesn't call his child defective. A husband doesn't refuse to commit to his wife's daughter after promising to love them both. He dismissed me, saying I was overreacting, that plenty of step-parents never adopt. He said I was blowing it out of proportion. That night, I slept in Rosie's room, on the floor, next to her bed. She asked why I was there, and I just told her I wanted to be close. "Okay, Mama," she murmured, falling asleep holding my hand. She had no idea that the man who read her bedtime stories, the man she called best friend, had just called her defective. She just knew her mama was there, and for her that was enough. But for me, it was the final straw. My heart was broken, but my resolve was absolute. The very next week, I found a divorce lawyer. I'd been up at 2 a.m., scrolling through support group forums, desperate. Someone posted about needing a lawyer for special needs families, and 3 people recommended Aurelia Whitley. I called her office the second it opened. Her secretary started to schedule me for next week, but Aurelia herself picked up the line. She just listened, and when I told her my husband refused to adopt my daughter and called her defective, there was a heavy silence. Then she said, "I can see you at 3 this afternoon. Something in your voice tells me this is urgent." Her office was in this beautiful brick building downtown, completely accessible. The waiting room even had toys and books on special needs parenting. I sat across from Aurelia and I just talked. She never interrupted, just took notes on a yellow legal pad. I told her everything. Vincent's promises, the wedding, Rosie throwing petals, the adoption papers, and those soul-crushing words. When I finished, she put down her pen. "I have a daughter with cerebral palsy," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "She's 9. I understand exactly what his words meant and why you can't stay." In that moment, I knew I was in the right hands. Aurelia was calm, professional, but I saw the fire in her eyes when she mentioned Vincent's name. Custody wasn't an issue. Vincent had no legal claim to Rosie. She was mine completely. The focus was on assets and support. She warned me that short marriages often meant minimal support, but she vowed to fight for what I deserved. I drove home with the retainer signed, a list of documents in hand. Vincent's car was in the driveway. I found him in the living room, watching TV as if nothing had happened. I stood in front of the screen and told him, "I've hired a divorce attorney. I'm filing papers." His face went blank. Shocked. He actually looked surprised, like he'd expected me to just accept his decision and move on. He immediately went into damage control. "We should try counseling. Every marriage has rough patches." But I looked at him, and I felt nothing but cold, hard certainty. "You can't counsel someone into loving your child," I told him, my voice steady, "or into not calling her defective. Those words came from somewhere deep inside you, and no therapist can fix that." He reached for my hand, but I stepped back. Then the fake concern vanished, replaced by anger. "You're overreacting. You're throwing away our marriage over paperwork," he shouted. But I just kept seeing him push those papers across the table. I kept hearing defective in his calm, reasonable voice. I went upstairs, pulled 2 suitcases from the closet, and started packing clothes for Rosie and me. Her favorite stuffed animals, her meds, medical records. Vincent followed me, demanding to know what I was doing. "We're leaving," I told him. He actually said, "You can't just take Rosie away from her home." I reminded him this was my home before it was his, and Rosie was my daughter before he ever met us. I loaded the suitcases into my car, went back for Rosie, who was coloring at the kitchen table. "We're going to Grandma's house," I said, and her bright smile told me she was thrilled. Mom opened the door, took one look at my face, and just pulled me into a hug. Rosie ran past us to Mom's toy box. Mom didn't ask questions. She just held me, let me stand there trying not to fall apart. Then she made tea. Sitting at her kitchen table, I told her everything. The adoption papers, his refusal, the legal responsibility, and the word defective that echoed endlessly in my head. Mom got quiet, staring into her teacup. Then she said, "I never fully trusted Vincent, but I hoped I was wrong. Something always seemed performed about him." She'd seen how he acted with Rosie at family gatherings and thought maybe she was being too critical. Now, she knew her instincts had been right. Rosie adjusted to Grandma's house with the easy grace only kids have. "Are we going home tomorrow?" she asked at bedtime. "We're having an adventure here for a while," I said. "Okay," she chirped, asking if we could make pancakes. That was enough for her. She just wanted her mama, and that was all that mattered. 3 days later, Aurelia filed the divorce petition and arranged for a process server to deliver the papers to Vincent at his office. Less than an hour later, my phone rang. Vincent. His voice was so loud, so furious, I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "How dare you have me served at work?" he shrieked. "My coworkers saw. My boss saw. You embarrassed me." I asked if he really thought I cared about his embarrassment after what he'd said about Rosie. He called me vindictive, petty, said I could have had him served at home. All he cared about was his reputation, not our family. I hung up on him, turning off my phone for the rest of the day. The following week, his attorney proposed mediation. Aurelia warned me that Vincent was more worried about his image than our marriage ending. He'd try to control the process, intimidate me. But judges like to see parties try to work things out, so we agreed. I knew it would be difficult. Brianna, my best friend since freshman orientation, showed up at Mom's with 3 bottles of wine and enough Chinese takeout to feed an army. She hugged me for a long, quiet time. She knew me before Vincent, held my hand through Rosie's birth and all her early appointments. She never made me feel like Rosie was a burden. Now, her support felt solid, real, in a way Vincent's fake acceptance never had. We ate and drank, and she asked if I was completely sure. "It's not just about the papers," I explained. "It's about discovering the man I married saw my daughter as a liability, about him calling her defective, like a broken product. I told her you can't come back from words like that. You can't fix a relationship with someone who thinks your child is less than human." Brianna just nodded, refilled my glass. She'd always had a bad feeling about him around Rosie, like he was performing kindness. Now she knew her instincts had been right. The first mediation session happened 2 weeks later. Vincent walked in looking so confident, so put together in his expensive suit. He actually smiled at me, like we were just having casual chat. The mediator began to explain the rules, but Vincent interrupted. He wanted to propose something. "We should reconcile," he said, "and forget about the divorce entirely if you'll just drop your unreasonable expectations about adoption. We can be happy together as long as you stop pushing me to legally claim Rosie." I looked across that table at him, and I felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, just cold, clear certainty. "There will be no reconciliation," I told him, my voice steady. "Under any circumstances. We are here to discuss asset division and support obligations, not to negotiate about saving our marriage." His confident smile vanished, replaced by an ugly, mean glare, the exact same look he had when he pushed those papers away. His attorney tried to argue he shouldn't owe spousal support because our marriage was so brief. But Aurelia, calm and lethal, explained how I'd left my job, my career, my life to move for his career. She laid out case law, showing how his hidden accounts damaged his credibility. The session ended without agreement, just as Aurelia predicted. She told me he was still in denial, thinking he could control me. But I wasn't that person anymore. I was a mother protecting her child, even if it cost me everything. That evening, Rosie's school called. Her teacher said Rosie had been asking about Vincent during circle time. She wanted to know how to handle the questions from other kids. I scheduled a meeting for the next day. Sitting in that small conference room, I explained we were divorcing, and Vincent didn't want to legally adopt Rosie. I couldn't bring myself to say the word defective aloud. Both the teacher and special ed coordinator were incredibly kind. They helped me understand how to talk to Rosie, focusing on what would stay the same, not what was changing. Later, while Rosie colored butterflies at Mom's kitchen table, I told her Vincent and I wouldn't be married anymore, that he would live somewhere else. "We'll stay with Grandma for now," I promised, "and you'll always have me and Grandma and everyone who loves you." Rosie put down her crayon, those deep, knowing eyes meeting mine. "Is it because I did something wrong?" she asked. That question hit me like a physical blow. Of course, she would blame herself. I pulled her onto my lap, held her tight. "No, baby, you didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes grown-ups make decisions that have nothing to do with kids. This was about Vincent and me, never about you. She was quiet for a moment, processing it in her own way. Then she asked for mac and cheese. Just like that, she moved on. Children are so much better at accepting what they can't control. That night, my phone started buzzing. Vincent. First, he texted that he missed us. 10 minutes later, he called me vindictive for taking Rosie away. Then an apology. Then an accusation. He wanted to work things out, then blamed me for ruining everything. The messages kept coming, a relentless barrage of anger and false remorse. Aurelia told me to stop responding. His back and forth was a manipulation tactic designed to keep me emotionally engaged, off balance. She said abusers use this pattern. Abuser. The word shocked me, but it clicked. He was trying to confuse me, to control me, even as he was losing me. 2 weeks later, the financial disclosure documents arrived. Going through them at Mom's kitchen table, I found accounts I'd never seen. Investment accounts in his name only. A separate savings account where he'd been transferring money throughout our marriage. I called Aurelia immediately. She came over, spread the papers, and pointed out the pattern. This, she said, suggests planning and intention. He was anticipating divorce, hiding assets, protecting his money regardless of what happened to your marriage. He was planning his exit from the very beginning. Vindicated. I wasn't crazy, but the anger, pure and hot, made my hands shake. He'd never been fully committed. He'd always kept one foot out the door, building an escape route while I was building a life, while I was falling in love with the idea of forever. A few days later, my phone rang. Gerard, a man's voice said, Vincent's brother. I hadn't spoken to him since the wedding. He lived in Oregon, worked in forestry. Gerard told me their dad walked out when Vincent was 8, just left for work one morning and never came back. Vincent spent years waiting for an explanation. He developed this deep, crippling fear of being trapped. Gerard had tried to get him into therapy, to show him commitment wasn't entrapment, but Vincent always refused. I'm not making excuses, Gerard said, his voice tight. Understanding why someone acts terribly doesn't make their actions acceptable. He hurt Rosie and he hurt you. You're doing the right thing for her. Understanding Vincent's damage didn't make me forgive him. It just made me sad. Sad that he let his past destroy any chance at a real future, that his fear built a wall between him and genuine love. The second mediation session. Vincent walked in looking utterly defeated, his confidence gone. His lawyer acknowledged the hidden assets, proposing a fair settlement. Aurelia and I went to a separate room. 6 months isn't enough, she said, pulling out her own calculations. She showed me case law, how the hidden account damaged his credibility. We crafted a counterproposal, 10 months of spousal support, a lump sum from asset division. When Aurelia presented it, Vincent's face turned beet red. I can't afford that, he blustered. Aurelia, calm as ever, pulled out the bank statements, the investment account records. She walked through his actual income, proving he absolutely could. She pointed out that he opened the retirement account 2 months before our wedding, suggesting it was a hidden marital asset. His attorney looked visibly uncomfortable. After another break, they came back. 10 months, plus a lump sum. Vincent, angry but beaten, signed. Aurelia said sometimes the best outcome is ending the conflict efficiently. It was over. I felt lighter than I had in months. I started looking at apartments immediately. Mom's had been a safe harbor, but Rosie and I needed our own space. Brianna came with me. One landlord, after seeing Rosie listed as a dependent, actually said the unit wasn't suitable for children with special needs. Brianna looked ready to tear him apart. We left. The 4th apartment we saw, in a building with a courtyard, felt different. Jella, the landlord, a woman who'd raised 3 kids there, showed us a ground floor unit. Wide doorways, a walk-in shower. Previous tenant needed accessibility, she said. When I mentioned Rosie had Down syndrome, Jella smiled. My nephew has autism. She asked what Rosie liked, what she loved. When I told her about purple and butterflies and dancing, Jella said, "There's a community garden. Rosie could plant flowers." The rent was manageable with my settlement and the part-time job I was starting. That job? It was at a non-profit for families with special needs children. It paid less, but the schedule was flexible, and the mission, it felt meaningful. Everything I'd learned raising Rosie, fighting through my divorce, suddenly felt useful. My experiences weren't just painful memories anymore. They were knowledge, a way to help other families. It felt like walking into a place where people actually understood. Rosie's purple butterfly room became her sanctuary. We went to the hardware store and she picked Lavender Dreams, a beautiful light purple. Brianna came to help me paint. Rosie put butterfly stickers all over the walls. This apartment held no memories of Vincent. Every choice was ours. And Rosie? She was thriving. Her teacher called, saying Rosie was more relaxed, more confident. "Has anything changed at home?" she asked. I explained about the divorce, the new apartment. The teacher nodded. "Children pick up on tension," she said. I realized Rosie had been carrying the weight of our broken household. Now, in our own space, without Vincent's hidden resentment, she could finally breathe. Brianna invited me to a single-parent support group. I was hesitant, but she insisted. Sitting in that circle, listening to other parents, I felt less alone. They talked about the daily grind, the judgment, but they were building good lives for their kids despite everything. They laughed, they supported each other. At the third meeting, someone asked about rejection from a partner who couldn't accept their child. Before I could overthink it, I spoke. I told them about Vincent, about defective. The room went silent. Then a dad across the circle spoke. His ex-wife had said similar things about their son with autism. He understood. Others nodded, sharing their own pain. We recognized it in each other's faces. The pain of someone who should have loved your child, choosing to see them as a burden. This group became my lifeline, a place where no one questioned if I was overreacting. They knew calling a child defective was unforgivable. They knew protecting your kid sometimes meant walking away from everything you thought you wanted. Gerard texted asking if he could send Rosie a birthday gift. I gave him our new address. The package arrived, an adaptive art kit, thick-handled brushes, textured paints, large grip crayons, a guide explaining how each tool worked. He had researched this. He saw Rosie clearly. I cried, not from sadness, but from overwhelming gratitude. This was someone who saw her value, who put thought into acknowledging her. Rosie's 7th birthday. A small party in our purple butterfly apartment. 5 kids from school, Mom, Brianna, our neighbors. The living room filled with laughter. Rosie wore a sparkly purple dress, a paper crown tilting on her head. She hugged each friend, telling them they were beautiful. When she blew out her candles, she stood on her chair and announced that all her friends were beautiful and she loved them. My chest tightened. This was acceptance. Not tolerance, not pity, but genuine acceptance. These people didn't see her as a liability. They saw a joyful little girl who happened to have Down syndrome. I watched her, surrounded by love, and knew I had made the right choice, terrifying as it was. She deserved to grow up knowing only this kind of love, free from anyone who viewed her as defective or less than. 6 months after the divorce, I even started dating again. Not for anything serious, but to trust my judgment. Matilda, my therapist, had helped me see Vincent's subtle rejections, the performative affection, the signs I'd ignored because I wanted so badly to believe. Now, I knew what to look for. Genuine curiosity about Rosie, an effort to interact with her, not just a polite acknowledgement. On a second date with a teacher I met, he asked about Rosie, genuinely. He had a nephew with autism. He wanted to know about her personality, her interests, her humor. His questions were thoughtful, not intrusive. I didn't know if it would lead anywhere, but I knew I could recognize real acceptance now. At work, I was promoted to program coordinator. I'd be designing workshops for parents navigating divorce with special needs children. My painful experience with Vincent, the knowledge I gained, it was all becoming useful. It felt like taking something broken and building something powerful from the pieces. Rosie started an adaptive dance class, coming home glowing every week. She never once asked about Vincent since we moved out. She just moved on. It hit me then. Vincent's rejection, devastating as it was, had actually revealed his true character before Rosie was old enough to fully understand. She was spared years of subtle rejection, of conditional love. She would never remember him calling her defective. She would grow up knowing only people who loved her completely. The timing of his betrayal, horrible as it felt then, had protected her from a much deeper hurt later. I told Matilda I felt ready to end therapy. She smiled, suggesting monthly maintenance sessions. Healing, she said, wasn't a destination. It was a garden that needed tending. She was right. Brianna, Rosie, and I went on a beach trip. Rosie ran straight into the waves, laughing, completely fearless. This was why I fought. This was why I chose divorce over staying. Rosie deserved to run into waves laughing, surrounded by people who loved her exactly as she was. Nearly a year had passed since Vincent called her defective. A year of rebuilding, of learning to trust myself, of creating a life that belonged completely to Rosie and me. We had our purple butterfly apartment, Brianna, Grandma Nora, my amazing coworkers, and other parents from Rosie's school. Our community was small, but it was strong, built from people who chose to love us completely, not from a safe distance. I wasn't pretending anymore. This was our authentic life, without compromise or apology. It felt solid in a way nothing with Vincent ever had. I tucked Rosie into bed. She looked up at me, her beautiful eyes reflecting mine, and said, "You are beautiful." And tonight, for the first time, I actually believed her. Not because anything external had changed, but because I saw my own strength reflected back. I had chosen her over everything when it mattered most. That choice had cost me the future I thought I wanted, but it had given me something better, the certainty that my love for her wasn't conditional. She fell asleep, secure in that love, and I sat there, grateful for the courage I'd found to leave, to build this life where Rosie could just be herself, without anyone calling her defective or broken. This journey was incredibly hard, but it taught me so much about love, betrayal, and true strength. I'm curious, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Or have you ever faced a moment where you realized someone you trusted saw your child, or even you, as defective? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. I really want to hear from you.